Hi, I'm Dr. Fred DiDomenico of Elite Coaching, and we have the number 2 video of the 7 video series of 7 steps to mastering change. Now, why are we doing this? Because we want to create lifelong patience. People come in wired, man, their brain is wired on certain emotional behaviors, and we want to create a lifelong patient. So we have to change their mindset. If we're going to change the way they act and live, we got to change the way they think. Isn't really that the purpose of what we're doing? We're creating empowered leaders, right? That take responsibility for the health. They do things different. They don't follow the general public. Man, these are salmon that swim upstream. Those are the, that's who we are. Those are the patients that we're creating that take responsibility. So the thing is, out of 120 years, we have 3.4% of the population, right? Describing an x-ray doesn't do that. We are really self-empowerment coaches. That's the way we have to look at this. The chiropractic profession is really a self-empowerment profession with a healthcare application. But we can't apply that healthcare application until we change their mindset. So what I'm doing is taking 20 years of communication training, right? Life coaching, NLP, going through Robbins coaching group, Tony Robbins, Chloe Madness, doing all these things, over years, and then honing that down into a 7-step series I learned from Robbins coaching that can literally transform people's perspective. And that's what I'm going through with you. This is what you do on day 1, day 2, and through their whole program. But if you get that up front, you're creating lifetime patience from the beginning. So what are a couple keys here? Number 1 is you have to have, and you and your team have to have a lifetime mindset. What's that mean? You got to see big picture. Because when you see big picture, you're not getting immersed in the small details and their small objections. People come in with this myopic vision, right? They're looking under a microscope with, gee, I don't have time, and man, I have to go buy bowling league, and I have all these tasks. And you get stuck in that microscope with them. Step 1 is realize you're a self-empowerment coach. Step 2 is the principle is truth. Keep a big picture, lifetime perspective. And from that, it's easier to take people through these 7 steps. So today, we're going through step 2. Okay? And we got the other 5 steps are going to follow in the next succeeding videos. Step 1, understand their world. That's the last video. This one, see, once you understand their world and you understand their emotional perspective, step 2, create a base, create leverage. What's that mean? Create a base is like analogous to pouring water down a deep well with no bottom. Create a base. You got to create a bottom on that well so it can start filling up with water. Create leverage. What's that mean? You got to create resistance. So it's just like if a person was doing a 100-yard sprint in the Olympics, they step into their blocks. Their blocks are the resistance they push against. That force they push against. What is that force? It's responsibility. They have to take responsibility. If a person doesn't take responsibility, then how can they make an empowered action? They have to have responsibility as a resistance to push against to create motion in another direction. So what's that mean? Well, let's give a couple examples. I just talked about this on Chiro Thought Leaders. Hey, make sure you go to those seminars. Get on ChiroThoughtLeaders.com and watch those videos. First of all, we just went over this. When a person says, when you ask them a question or report a finding, so if the spinal cord has stress on it, energy not moving through the body, Mr. Jones, how's that going to affect your health? Well, doc, I don't know. You know. I'm not the doctor. See, that's a no responsibility answer. And so, big picture. Stop telling them what you know and have them take responsibility for that question. Well, first of all, Mr. Jones, I know what the effect is, but it's not important what I know. What I would say, this is your disease. Is it important that you know about the disease process in your body? They're not going to say no to that. Where they say, well, doc, I don't know. Well, is it important that you do know? If it's going on in your body, isn't that important for you to know? See, that's a responsibility question. What would be another example? Would be a victim. Well, it's my job. My back hurts because of my job. I'm a bricklayer, and my daddy was a bricklayer, and his daddy was a bricklayer, and his daddy came from Italy, and everybody knows Italians lay bricks, right? So, how did I get to be a chiropractor? That's what I'm wondering. Anyway, we lay foundations in spine. So it's like, then it must be that you saw the physical trauma that your grandfather and your father went through. So the fact that you got a weak spine, you're having this problem, this shouldn't be a surprise to you, is it? Well, no, it's my job. Right. So are you doing the things that offset the damage to the body? So you know your job damages your body. Well, yeah, it's hard work. I'd validate him. Yeah, it's really hard, man. I don't know if I can do what you do. Puff his chest up a little bit. Right? I couldn't do what you do. But regardless, you know it's damaging your body. And they'd say yes. See, that's the beginning of taking responsibility. So if you don't want to end up with a damaged body, then you know you have to do something along the way. Would you agree? That's responsibility, see? Excuse me. Until they do that, how are they going to create empowered action? Otherwise, this is my job. There's nothing I can do about it. Doc just cracked my back and I'll come back in a month where I lay another 1,000 bricks and my back hurts. They feel powerless to some point, right? Because something in their life is out of their control. See, that's where responsibility is. Why do some people get stuck in a problem? Because they made a decision earlier in their life, something in their past that they can't change. There's something in their life that's out of control, right? There's something in their life that they don't have power. Or maybe they have an activity that based on their solution, it created a positive response and they keep reinforcing that. See, that's the person that goes to the chiropractor. Well, doc, you know, I lay brick, it's out of their control. And I just go to the chiropractor and crack my back and my wife couldn't get it and I'm fine. Hey, that's something, a repeated pattern that they think has worked for them in the past. You're dealing with all these emotional, neurological patterns. But those are all no responsibility, mental, emotional patterns. Until you break that pattern, no, I'm Italian, see this? Until you break that pattern, right, it's not going to change. So how do you break the pattern? You have to ask questions that get them to take responsibility. See, this is it. What are all the examples where people aren't taking responsibility? Well, I don't have time. That's not responsibility. Well, okay. So do you believe you have a condition that's making your body weak? Yes. Do you believe it's getting worse every day? Yes. So if you don't take time to get healthy, that means you're allotting that time to get sick. So you're not turning it around, and it's going to get worse and you're going to get sick. I'm just curious, how do you want to spend your time? Right? There's responsibility. Well, if you don't fix it and you know it's getting worse, then are you really allowing it to get worse? Well, yeah, but. See, when they say but, forget about everything they said after but. So you go, well, yeah, but I don't have time. So you are allowing it to get worse. See, whenever anybody says but, delete everything they say after but and focus on the yeah part. By the way, with your spouse, never say yeah, but, okay? Because you just discredit everything. Just a, little personal coaching tip for your marriage. Don't ever say but to your spouse. So when somebody says yeah, but to you, forget about the but and focus on the yes and just address that. See, these are all, so you do know you're taking time to get sick. Well, yeah, but so you do know, yeah, I understand. I heard you the first time and you do know that. See, these are all responsibility statements. If you don't create that base, if you don't use emotional leverage, by taking responsibility, you're not going to clear that limiting belief. And until you clear that limiting belief, they're walking out the door. I just gave you 3 scenarios off the top of my head where all those people probably walked out the door. It's a rare occasion, right, that somebody like that will commit. Maybe some of you got lucky. Maybe you're really passionate. Maybe they bought your state, but the majority of people would lose those patients. Or you accept them as pain patients, which is even more irritating because now what did you do? You reinforced and you're creating the neurological pathway or reinforcing the neurological pathway that says chiropractic is about back pain. Establish your core values. Learn how to communicate. Learn how to change these people's limiting beliefs and help them reach their God-given potential. I know that's your desire. Now let's have your systems match. That's the beginning of step 2. Hey, you know what? We spend 2.5 days over 2 boot camps showing you many different scenarios of these 7 steps and so much more. So all these videos, I'm taking stuff directly out of the boot camps. Anyway, stay on top of these videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and look for the next video series.